amusement parks prove fun can be strangled to death by a rule book and khakis. 1. The no screaming on roller coasters. Rule: some parks have decided that the natural human response to plummeting 200 feet at 70 miles an hour, screaming, is now a violation of park harmony. One California neighborhood complained that coaster shrieks were too joyful, so the nearby park created a rule politely asking riders to minimize vocal expressions. Translation: please experience terror quietly, like you're in a library with G-forces. Imagine holding back a scream during a 5-loop coaster while a teenager next to you is yelling, "This is awesome," with the boldness of someone who has never read a homeowner association letter. It's the only amusement park rule that essentially says, have fun, but don't sound like you're having fun. 2. The park that banned. Walking on walkways. One small regional park once tried to protect their freshly repainted pathways by banning guests from walking on them. You know, the thing pathways are literally designed for. They put up signs saying, "Please keep off decorative pavement," leaving families staring at the ground like they'd just stepped into a museum exhibit titled Sidewalks of Ancient Egypt. This rule forced people to shuffle awkwardly along the edges of planters, hugging bushes like they were fleeing from a crime scene. Nothing kills the magic of an amusement park like feeling guilty for using your legs in the intended location. 3. The no laughing in line policy. A Midwestern park tried to curb line disturbances by implementing a rule that banned loud laughter while waiting. Not fighting, not cutting, laughter. Apparently, one summer the lines got so long and miserable that management decided joy itself was the real operational threat. Picture standing in line for 90 minutes in the blazing sun, taking one tiny moment to laugh at your friend's joke, and suddenly a 17-year-old ride attendant materializes like an angered mall cop. Sir, that level of happiness violates Park Code 12B. At that point, the ride isn't the thrill, surviving customer service is. 4. The ride where you're not allowed to raise your hands. Some parks have decided to outlaw the classic roller coaster move, throwing your hands in the air like you're in an 80s Pepsi commercial. Why? Because one park got tired of guests accidentally slapping the decorative tunnel archway, which, by the way, was placed way too low in the first place. Instead of fixing the tunnel, they fixed the guests. Staff now shout, "Hands down!" like they're coaching a hostage negotiation. Nothing says excitement like gripping the safety bar so hard your knuckles turn whiter than the park's accountant during tax season. It's the only thrill ride where the scariest part isn't the drop, it's the wrist monitoring. 5. The park that banned wet clothes on water rides. Yes, this actually happened. A park introduced a rule requiring riders to remain dry when exiting water attractions, which is like telling people to leave a barbecue without smelling like smoke. After a few too many guests complained that their shoes got wet on a water ride, management panicked and created a rule that made absolutely no physical sense. So employees had to stand at the exit with a look of existential defeat, telling soaked families, you're technically in violation. It's the first time in history a lifeguard turned ride operator had to explain that the water they just saw didn't actually happen. 6. The no smiling in photos regulation. Some parks attempting to standardize their ride photos banned exaggerated poses, funny faces, and even smiling too broadly. Why? Because someone in corporate decided that uniform expressions would improve branding. Suddenly, every ride photo looked like a DMV portrait taken at 65 mph. Families would emerge from a 200-foot drop, looking like they were posing for a passport application. Imagine paying $24.99 for a photo where you look like you're being forced into witness protection. It's the only amusement park rule that actively removes amusement from the amusement. 7. The park that forbade running. While running rides late. This is the classic paradox. A park running behind schedule, lines an hour longer than usual, decided to issue strict warnings against running between attractions. They posted signs saying, "No running, safety first," while their own employees sprinted from ride to ride like caffeinated gazelles trying to make up time. Meanwhile, guests trying to catch a show that starts in 2 minutes were told to walk calmly, even though the only calm person in the entire park was the animatronic bear in Frontierland. It's the kind of rule that turns a full day of fun into a slow-motion obstacle course of frustration. 8. The no eating near food stands. Rule: at one park, management created a cleanliness initiative, banning guests from eating within 20 feet of any food cart, which was everywhere. This forced people to walk around holding hot pretzels like radioactive material, desperately searching for a designated food zone, which turned out to be two sad benches behind a trash compactor. Parents balanced churros, popcorn, drinks, and strollers like a Cirque du Soleil act, just trying not to break the rule. Meanwhile, the birds, who can't read signage, continued dining wherever they pleased. It's the only food policy in America that makes you feel like you smuggled in contraband funnel cake. 9. The park that banned taking pictures of their own mascot. One park tried to protect character integrity by banning guests from photographing the mascot unless they paid for the official photo package. Imagine a giant foam raccoon waving at children while a security guard hisses, "No personal cameras." Parents pulled out their phones like paparazzi escaping a royal scandal. Meanwhile, the mascot looked helpless, trapped between wanting to hug a toddler and knowing corporate would execute him for appearing on Instagram for free. It's the only place on Earth where a person in a fuzzy suit can cause a copyright crisis. 10. The quiet zones placed next to roller coasters. Some parks introduced quiet reflection areas, peaceful zones meant for rest, meditation, and calmness. Beautiful idea, until they accidentally placed them next to the loudest steel coasters in the park. Imagine trying to relax on a bench with a sign that says Serenity Zone, while behind you a train screams by at Mach 3, with passengers yelling like they're fleeing a natural disaster. Birds won't land there, children won't nap there, even the squirrels file noise complaints. It's the closest thing to attempting yoga inside a jet engine. 11. The park that required you to hold your ice cream. Upright, a certain park once implemented a spill prevention policy, demanding guests carry ice cream cones only in an upright position. Employees were trained to remind anyone holding their cone at a slight angle, because nothing says fun like feeling policed by someone wearing a visor and name tag. No tilting allowed, no playful wiggling, no dramatic bites. One dad got reprimanded because he leaned over to tie his shoe and endangered the structural integrity of his swirl. It's the only dessert rule in America that treats sprinkles like hazardous materials. 12. The ride where you must keep your eyes open. A thrill ride in the Southwest once created a rule: riders must keep eyes open for safety verification. Because apparently closed eyes were creating monitoring challenges. So staff members stood at the exit like disappointed gym coaches asking, "Did you blink?" Grown adults were accused of non-compliance for flinching during a 4G corkscrew. Teenagers got scolded for squeezing their eyes shut on the drop. It became the only roller coaster on Earth where fear wasn't the enemy. The camera checking your eyelids was. 13. The no matching shirts regulation. One park decided groups wearing matching shirts were causing crowd flow inconsistencies, so they banned coordinated outfits. Families who just wanted a cute reunion photo were treated like organized crime cells. Bachelor parties were lectured, church groups were interrogated. A grandmother leading her 12 grandkids in identical neon shirts was told she was violating uniform clustering guidelines. Meanwhile, the park's own staff stood there in matching shirts, proving the rule was less about safety and more about not wanting anyone to look more unified than management. 14. The park that prohibited pointing at attractions. Apparently, finger-pointing creates directional confusion. That's an actual explanation from a park that banned guests from pointing at rides. Instead, they recommended gesturing with an open palm in a gentle, sweeping motion. So families wandered around looking like airline attendants demonstrating exits. Kids were scolded for pointing at the giant spinning ride shaped like a UFO. One dad tried to ask where the bathrooms were, pointed slightly, and got reprimanded like he'd committed a felony. It's the only rule that turns basic human navigation into choreography. 15. The no wet hair outside the water park zone. Rule: a coastal amusement resort introduced a rule against walking through the dry areas with visibly wet hair because it created the appearance of messiness. Lifeguards had to stop people at the gates like bouncers at a nightclub. "Sorry, sir, you'll need to towel off behind the line." Parents carrying 3 dripping children tried explaining that hair does, in fact, remain wet after swimming, but policy is policy. Some guests resorted to wringing their hair into souvenir cups just to avoid a warning. It's the only amusement rule where your scalp can commit a fashion crime. 16. The ride that banned wind complaints. One coastal park got so tired of guests complaining about too much wind on high-speed rides, yes, the ones designed to generate wind, that they added a rule stating, "Wind discomfort is not grounds for refund." Imagine standing at guest services, hair still in post-tornado formation, while a bored employee points to a laminated sign essentially saying, "We told you the air would move." This is the only place on Earth where Mother Nature herself has a customer service disclaimer. 17. The no squeaky shoes policy. A small family park once banned squeaky toddler shoes because the sound disrupted ambiance. Which ambiance? The roller coasters? The screaming? The $14 churros frying in industrial oil? So employees had to stop parents at the gate and ask, "Ma'am, does your child's footwear make noise?" They genuinely expected parents to answer honestly about toddlers. One dad tried muffling his kid's shoes with napkins and tape like he was smuggling contraband squeaks. It's the only amusement park rule that punishes children for walking like children. 18. The park that required approved laughter types. Trying to be cute and whimsical, one park created a recommended laughter scale, encouraging giggles and chortles but discouraging booming guffaws because they carry too far across the lagoon. It took only 1 week for teens to turn it into a rebellion. Guests began fake laughing in bizarre ways, robotic giggles, villain cackles, dolphin noises, until staff had to patrol the walkways like noise sommeliers evaluating laugh quality. It was chaos. The rule lasted 11 days, which is impressive for something that died of embarrassment. 19. The no souvenir bag swinging regulation. Because one child once accidentally smacked his dad with a plush giraffe in a gift shop, a park invented a rule banning bag swinging anywhere within 30 feet of retail zones. Staff treated souvenir bags like medieval weapons. Parents were warned. Teens were monitored. A lady was written up for turning too quickly with a bag of magnets. Meanwhile, the park sold oversized swords, inflatable hammers, and giant novelty axes, all allowed. But swing a paper bag? That's apparently how civilizations fall. 20. The park that banned sitting on grass, but had no benches. A park wanted to keep its lawns immaculate, so it banned all grass sitting. Problem was, the park also removed benches to reduce clutter. So thousands of exhausted guests wandered around looking for a legally approved horizontal surface. Some leaned against trees, some sat on curbs like they were waiting for a bus that never comes. One grandmother sat on her own closed purse like it was makeshift furniture. Nothing kills joy like a place where the ground itself is off limits. 21. The no sharing food with family members. Rule trying to fight unofficial meal splitting. One park created a rule forbidding sharing entrees unless you paid a sharing fee. A mom who handed her toddler one fry got lectured like she was stealing corporate secrets. Whole families whispered over plates like they were conducting a covert mission. Teenagers learned to smuggle chicken strips between tables like contraband. It's the closest America has ever come to outlawing generosity. 22. The ride that prohibited closing your mouth. Because a ride photo kept capturing people mid-scream looking unflattering, a park added a rule asking riders to maintain a closed-mouth expression during drops. Imagine trying to go down a 180-foot plunge looking calm, serene, and dentist-approved. The result? Dozens of guests looking constipated in the ride photos. One guy bit his own lip so hard he asked for a bandage at the exit. Staff realized the human jaw is not designed to stay politely shut during freefall. Shocking, I know. And the rule quietly disappeared. 23. The designated fun zones only rule. A major chain park once tested a pilot program requiring active excitement, cheering, dancing, clapping, only within marked fun zones. Everywhere else, guests were expected to maintain neutral enjoyment. Teens turned this into an Olympic sport of sarcasm. They'd walk stone-faced through pathways, then explode into choreographed chaos the moment they crossed a fun zone line, like Disney Channel extras rehearsing a finale. Parents were confused, staff were overwhelmed, and nothing says fun like a rule dictating exactly where you're allowed to feel it. 24. The park that banned water bottles, then sold water bottles. In an attempt to reduce litter, a park banned all outside water bottles at the entrance. Security treated reusable bottles like radioactive contraband. Guests tossed them into bins shaped like recycling coffins. Then, 20 feet later, the park sold its own branded water bottles for $7.99. Same shape, same size, same function. The only thing different was the logo and the mild scent of corporate hypocrisy. Parents dehydrated faster from rage than heat. One dad actually tried arguing, "If I put a sticker on mine, can I go back and claim it?" Security did not laugh. 25. The park with a no roller coaster riding after eating law. Some parks encourage you to eat, then ride. This one decided to enforce a digestion schedule. Staff were instructed to ask guests, "Have you eaten in the past 30 minutes?" And if the answer was yes, they were turned away like they were trying to board a rocket launch. Imagine missing a ride because you dared to eat a pretzel. Teens learned to lie with the confidence of seasoned lawyers. Parents hid churros like they were smuggling diamonds. It's the only amusement park that wanted you to treat your stomach like it had a curfew. 26. The no taking off your sunglasses policy. One sunny state park added a bizarre rule demanding that guests keep their sunglasses on during rides, for brand imagery. Marketing wanted every photo to look like a glossy brochure featuring cool, composed people who apparently don't experience wind. The result? Half the sunglasses flew off mid-ride, turning the coaster track into a minefield of airborne accessories. Maintenance crews collected piles of broken shades every night, like battlefield debris. Eventually, they gave up when they realized forcing eyewear to fight gravity was the opposite of safe. 27. The park that required guests to announce their fear level. In a strange effort to personalize experiences, one park set up kiosks where guests had to pick a fear level before riding. Fearless, concerned, terrified, or prefer not to say. Staff then announced it over the speaker as people boarded. "We've got 3 concerns and a terrified in row 4. People hated it. Adults felt judged. Kids felt pressured. One grandma picked fearless out of pride, then closed her eyes and prayed for the entire 3-minute ride. Sometimes you don't want your emotional state broadcast like an NFL injury report. 28. The no sitting while eating ice cream. Rule a park once banned sitting with soft serve cones because guests tend to linger too long. So they forced families to wander around eating like confused nomads. Melting trails of vanilla dripped across walkways as parents tried walking, parenting, and cone rotation simultaneously. Elderly guests had to shuffle like penguins to keep their treats from splattering. One mom defiantly sat on a planter edge and got warned as if she pulled a fire alarm. Meanwhile, the irony? The park also sold souvenir benches in the gift shop. 29. The park that required pre-approved hats. Some hats, according to the park, were wine-sensitive, so guests had to go through a hat checkpoint, where staff evaluated whether their cap was amusement-approved. Baseball caps? Good. Straw hats? Too drifty. Bucket hats? Suspicious. A fedora nearly caused an argument between 2 employees who could not agree on its aerodynamic stability. Guests without approved hats were forced to remove them, hold them, or rent a ride-safe strap for an extra $4. It was the closest any park has gotten to running an accidental fashion police academy. 30. The park that prohibited emotional outbursts. During a nighttime fireworks show, one park added a rule banning excessive vocal excitement, meaning no cheering, no oohs, no ahs, and absolutely no crying. Yes, crying. Guests were told to enjoy quietly. Picture hundreds of people standing there like they're watching a PowerPoint presentation instead of a fireworks finale. Kids were shushed. Adults were scolded. One guy who yelled, "Whoa!" on a big explosion was told his enthusiasm was disruptive. It was the only fireworks event that demanded the emotional range of a tax audit. 31. The park that required guests to walk in assigned directions. To improve flow, the park split walkways into directional lanes, left side for active movers, right side for casual strollers. Staff stood like traffic cops enforcing human speed limits. Families got separated. Teenagers got ticketed for erratic walking. A couple was warned for changing lanes without signaling. And when the parade began, all the lanes collapsed into confusion anyway, proving the one universal truth. Humans are terrible at following sidewalk rules. It was the closest any amusement park has ever come to turning fun into highway engineering. 32. The park that banned walking and talking at the same time. In a heroic attempt to curb walkway congestion, One park issued a rule forbidding guests from walking while talking. Staff actually encouraged people to pause conversations before navigating forward, so couples stopped mid-path to finish sentences. Groups of teenagers turned into traffic cones, frozen in place mid-story. Entire families gridlocked like a malfunctioning escalator. Meanwhile, the park blamed guests for slowed flow, even though they created the slowdown. It's the only amusement park in America where multitasking became a punishable offense. 33. The park that enforced a smile at staff mandate. To create positive vibes, one park required guests to smile at employees when entering certain zones. Failure to smile resulted in a friendly reminder from a staff member who probably hadn't smiled sincerely since orientation. Imagine trudging through 100-degree heat with 3 cranky kids and being told, "Sir, we need a bigger smile for the fantasy forest." It was less Disneyland magic and more TSA checkpoint energy. Guests started practicing forced grins so tight they looked like emojis under duress. 34. The no pointing at maps rule. Apparently, too many people poked holes in the park maps with their fingers, so management banned pointing at them altogether. Guests had to use a hover hand technique. Parents hovered, kids hovered. Tourists hovered so dramatically they looked like they were trying to summon rides telepathically. Meanwhile, staff had to do interpretive dance to explain directions, sweeping their arms like cruise directors guiding passengers to the lifeboats. It was cartography turned into performance art. 35. The park that required guests to announce their snack intentions. To manage concession lines, one park asked guests entering food courts to declare whether they planned to order meals, snacks, or just looking. Staff made people switch lanes like TSA pre-check. A guy who wanted fries changed his mind mid-line and got reprimanded for intention drift. One mom admitted she wasn't sure yet and was told to stand in the undecided zone, a roped-off area where confused humans waited like malfunctioning NPCs. It made buying nachos feel like filing a tax form. 36. The park with designated laugh times. Trying to create nostalgic street theater energy, the park installed daily laugh cycles, where guests were encouraged to laugh for 1 minute every hour. Staff blew whistles, and the entire place erupted like a mass hysteria drill. Kids giggled, teens fake laughed, adults chuckled out of obligation. Then everything went silent again, until the next whistle. It was whimsical for exactly 1 morning and deeply unsettling after that. Guests felt like they were in an experimental psychology study sponsored by funnel cake. 37. The park that banned walking too confidently security noticed that overly assertive strides looked suspicious on cameras, so they created a rule encouraging neutral walking posture. People with naturally powerful walks were asked to tone down their leg energy. One guy was stopped because he walked with purpose. Another was told he appeared goal-oriented. Imagine being lectured for simply looking like you know where you're going. It was the only park to ever outlaw ambition. 38. The park that prohibited spontaneous celebrations. Someone once knocked over a soda while cheering after winning a carnival game, so the park issued a rule banning sudden celebrations. No whooping, no fist pumping, no victory dances. Winners had to celebrate quietly and with controlled emotion, like they just solved a crossword puzzle. The basketball game area became a zone of polite nods and restrained thumbs up. A teenager who hit a nearly impossible shot was told, "Sir, enthusiasm must remain internal." The park achieved the impossible, making winning boring. 39. The park that required pre-approved selfie angles. Yes, a park really tried this. To avoid visual clutter on social media, they created designated selfie angles and banned unflattering guest-generated perspectives. Staff went around policing selfies like fashion photographers with badges. A mom trying to capture a moment with her daughter was told her angle was not optimal. Influencers revolted, turning forbidden angles into a challenge trend. Nothing spreads faster online than a rule begging to be broken. 40. The park that banned walking against the wind. A windy desert park issued a rule forbidding guests from walking against strong gusts because it created visual struggle. Staff encouraged people to wait until wind direction aligns with travel goals. Guests stood frozen, hair sideways, waiting for nature to give permission. Meanwhile, the wind, famously not unionized, ignored the policy entirely. It was meteorology meets bureaucracy, and bureaucracy lost. 41. The park with silence zones near kiddie rides. In a baffling twist, the park placed strict quiet zones right next to the noisiest kiddie rides imaginable. Tiny trains, honking cars, spinning bees powered by screaming toddlers. Staff shushed adults while children hollered like unleashed chaos gremlins. Parents asked, "So they can scream, but I can't say cute ride?" Answer: yes, ma'am, that is correct. If irony were electricity, this zone could power the whole county. 42. The no jumping in photos. Band guests once created a viral trend of jumping in midair for photos, so the park banned aerial posing. Apparently, airborne guests confused motion sensors. Staff had to explain that photos must be grounded. Families reluctantly posed like department store mannequins. Teens rebelled with micro-jumps so tiny they looked like glitches in reality. The park had accidentally invented the world's saddest athletic competition. 43. The park that required guests to clap before boarding. To boost morale, ride attendants introduced mandatory pre-ride applause. Guests had to clap enthusiastically before boarding, essentially cheering for the privilege of waiting in line for 90 minutes. Nothing makes you feel like a trained SEAL faster than being told, "Okay, everybody, clap or we can't dispatch the train." One dad refused and was stared at like he'd publicly insulted Mickey Mouse. 44. The no looking down rule on a freefall tower. A tower ride banned guests from looking down because anticipation reduces enjoyment metrics. Staff instructed riders to focus on the horizon. The moment they reached the top, 90% of riders immediately looked down out of pure human instinct. One attendant actually yelled, "Eyes forward," as the floor dropped. Humans are curious creatures. Rules are weak. Gravity always wins. 45. The park that allowed screaming only in designated screaming booths. Trying to balance noise complaints, the park set up scream booths, foam-lined phone booth structures where guests could scream without disrupting. The ambiance. It was supposed to reduce coaster noise. Instead, it created lines of people waiting patiently to scream indoors like emotionally charged owls. Parents used it to vent. Teens used it as a dare. Adults used it for therapy. Weirdly, this rule almost made sense. 46. The park that banned rain ponchos. During rainstorms. In a spectacular act of logic failure, the park banned ponchos because the colors clashed with the aesthetic. Guests had to walk through rain showers soaked like Victorian ghosts. Staff told people to embrace the weather experience. A family tried using a stroller cover as a shield and got scolded. The only dry creatures in the entire park were the ducks, who clearly sensed victory. 47. The park that required guests to maintain magical posture. The park wanted better photos, so they introduced a posture rule. Shoulders back, chin up, magical stance encouraged. Staff corrected posture like drill sergeants in sparkly uniforms. One teen slouched slightly while waiting for a coaster and was told to find his inner majestic energy. It was the only time in history posture policing happened in a place selling corn dogs and $11 lemonade. 48. The final rule: fun must be pre-scheduled. As the crown jewel of absurdity, one experimental park introduced a rule requiring guests to reserve time slots for fun. Want to laugh? That's a 1:30 p.m. booking. Want to feel excitement? Sorry, 4:45 is the earliest. Want to get spontaneous joy from a random moment? Absolutely not. Spontaneity requires a reservation. Families walked around with schedules that looked like tax audits. A dad who dared enjoy a joke before his fun window was politely reprimanded by staff. "Sir, emotional expression is not currently authorized." This rule lasted exactly 72 hours before collapsing under the weight of its own stupidity. Humanity's greatest enemy isn't danger, it's rules that strangle joy. Pick the dumbest one.